Major Filer, if you could.
Yes.
Go ahead.
I'm a retired Air Force major with 5,000 flying hours, and I'm currently the Eastern Regional Director of the Mutual UFO Network, which is studying this phenomenon, and editor of the Filer's Files. When I was flying for the Air Force 420th Air Refueling Squadron stationed at RAF Sculthorpe in England in January of '62, we were in orbit for refueling fighter aircraft over the North Sea at about 30,000 feet in our KB-50J tanker just after sunset on a clear night. London Control excitedly called us and notified us that they had an unidentified object hovering on their radar near Stonehenge. We were asked if we were willing to intercept the unidentified craft, and our refueling mission had just finished, so we quickly agreed to chase their UFO. We were given an intercept heading and started to dive toward the UFO. It was really an exciting situation. Next, and we were to go towards Stonehenge, which is over the center of England. Next. London Control was diverting all aircraft out of our way so that we could have a clear path for the intercept. Then we realized we were above our red line speed on the aircraft and had to pull back on the power. And London Control started giving us distances to the hovering UFO. Next. It was some 60 miles ahead and then 40 and so on. And as we got closer, we got the radar going on our aircraft and picked up the hovering UFO in the distance, about 30 miles. It was an exceptionally large radar return. Next. And just judging on the size of the radar return, it was about equal to the Brooklyn Bridge or the Firth of Forth Bridge in Scotland, which is a huge bridge about a mile long. It was the biggest radar return that I'd ever seen on the aircraft radar. And it was sharp and solid as compared to the fuzziness of a rain cloud. I felt the craft must be made of steel or some kind of strong metal. Next. We were doing about 425 miles per hour as we approached about 10 miles. This gives you an example of how large a radar return it was. It was a dark night, and we could only see a series of dim lights directly ahead. Next. This is something what it looked like in the distance. Suddenly the UFO seemed to come alive, and the lights brightened immensely, and the UFO accelerated in a launch similar to a space shuttle taking off. Next. Lit up the sky and disappeared, frankly. We saw much brighter lights and a fantastic acceleration. It seemed to go straight up, at just estimating speed like 50,000 miles an hour, 100 times faster than we were moving. We asked London Control if they had any rocket launches in the area. London Control seemed as disappointed as we were, and the controller said, "There are no rocket launches in the area. Thank you for your intercept. You are now cleared to return to your mission." The incident was recorded in my navigator's log and was mentioned the next day in operations. Interestingly, the Air Force did not seem particularly interested. A few weeks later, we were invited to a dining in with Prince Philip as a speaker, and he asked to speak with the air crews that had chased the UFOs. So apparently London Control had told him that we had chased this UFO, and we sat down at the table with him, and he was very friendly, and I essentially told him what I just told you, and he indicated that he regularly interviewed the air crews that were chasing UFOs. Either he or his aide would interview them. And I asked why Prince Philip was personally interested in UFOs, and he said that his uncle, the Earl Mountbatten, had seen the UFOs close up in the Navy, and that obviously he believed his uncle. Next. Prince Philip. Next. This gives you some indications of the ships that this one was taken over Japan. And if you notice, there's a large cylinder, but outside the cylinder, there's 12 disc craft. And this is typically what they do. They're often called motherships because they launch these smaller disc-shaped craft from them. Next. This picture was taken by NASA over the Atlantic Ocean and near Iceland. Next. And this one was actually a video. This is one shot from the video taken over England on Burnham-on-the-Sea on February 11th, 2009. Next. Now this is something interesting that I feel, or have the theory, that the ancient British actually copied the UFOs. The archaeological structures are carved in the ground in England. There's dozens of them, and these structures are over a mile long. Next. And this is how they're made. These ditches are carved out, and if you think about the type of energy that it takes to make what amounts to is a 2-mile around section of these ditches, the British archaeologists call them cursus because they remind them of kind of a racetrack. But I suggest that they in fact show that the craft had been there in ancient times. Next. Here's another picture of one, the Stonehenge cursus, and you see outlined on the ground. And this is right in the Stonehenge area. Next. This is one of the typical disc-shaped craft. Next. And they built these huge hills in England. The question is, why were they built? It happens that the disc-shaped aircraft seem to be able to power up by the energy inside the hills and the electrical energy coming down. Next. We feel that it's something like the cargo cult in World War II. The natives in the South Pacific made shapes of aircraft on the ground, and that the British in the ancient times may have done the same thing. Next. This is one of the better craft pictures taken in Cumberland, Rhode Island on July 3rd, 1967, and this was colorized and the windows put in. Next. One Navy Chief Petty Officer, flight engineer with 10,000 hours, had also seen a UFO, and he said that the cigar-shaped craft was twice the size of 2 aircraft carriers. Next. And the object moved east at about 100 knots and was a huge aircraft. A similar one was seen by 2 pilots on 2 different airlines over the English Channel on April 23rd, 2007. Next. Captain Ray Bauer in his Ernie aircraft, and a Blue Island pilots had seen these UFOs and reported them.
Major, you have a little bit less than a minute left.
Okay. Here's Captain Bauer reporting it in 2007. Next. And here's a close-up of one taken in France just recently. In any case, these spacecraft occasionally roam our skies. They're seen by many people, by many pilots and air crews, and I think they've been here for thousands of years, and our ancestors made structures on the ground to remind us that they had actually been here. I've been interested in UFOs ever since, and I'd like to dedicate this talk to my two daughters that recently passed away. Thank you.